Right. Well, welcome to Men's Couch. I'm excited to have you all be a part of Men's Couch and just the community of Men's Couch. And also, I'm excited to talk about like how we met and that experience at Jubilee. So yeah, Micah Blackwell here. Can like you guys can like introduce yourself if you want.
I'll go next. My name's Chip.
My name's Joey.
And my name is Jordan.
Did you want us to
so
get a little more in depth about our intros, like what we're up to and stuff?
so what I guess we can kind of talk about like the experience of how we met because it's really funny. It's a little funny because I think we were all waiting for what's his name?
Justin?
Yeah, Justin to like get done. And we all had like something to say that we wanted to talk to him more about. Like towards the end, we all kind of realized that like the session kind of impacted us on a deeper level. And I think that's kind of how we connected.
No, yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I would add to that, like, I stayed behind to literally just thank Justin. I wasn't gonna like add to the conversation. I just thought he did a really good job. And I just want to be like, hey, like, thanks so much. I ended up not even getting to talk to him. So like I went up there and I was just like waiting to like say something, to just say hi, say thank you. And I think Jordan came to me and he either asked if I was buying his book or he said something about my sweater. I can't remember exactly.
I said something about your sweater first, because that was definitely the thing that first caught my eye.
And I was like, dude, thanks so much about my sweater. And then we just, we just started talking about like what we thought about the seminar.
Yeah, I don't think we actually explained here, but for some of the viewers that aren't maybe up to speed on things, Jubilee is just this fantastic, awesome conference that goes on once a year in Pittsburgh. And in this conference, there are a bunch of little workshops and breakout sessions. And one of these breakout sessions we had the opportunity of attending was this one on depression. And Justin was the speaker there, and he got to kind of break down his own experiences and kind of explain how he's dealt with it throughout his life.
which as a guy that I imagine that was super hard for him to do to break through that barrier of being honest in front of a bunch of like random college students or random young adults. I bet that was like super hard for him to do. But I think is he's just an example to all of us that that's kind of what the world needs right now is for us to be honest about what we're going through and just that actually leads to you kind of being more like a real down to earth person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of segues nicely into kind of topic that we wanted to cover today was just vulnerability. I know for myself, or for people who don't know who I am, I come from a lot of different areas in my life where vulnerability is certainly not easy. I'm an athlete, so the expectation is that, you know, you're going to perform no matter what. You're a part of this team where like everyone's counting on you to do this one thing, so they don't really like seeing like the vulnerable side of me per se. And then I'm also incorporated into like some military programs here with military trainings. In the same way, there's
Mhm.
kind of this attitude of just tough it out, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and keep going no matter what, and just be quiet, and eventually it'll turn out okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that sort of narrative or vibe, I guess, in culture. It's big. It's been there, for the viewers. I've been in college for 6 years, studied engineering for 2, and then I switched over to industrial design. And nothing about those programs, like, I guess, like, made me feel like I couldn't be vulnerable about mental health or anything like that. But I do think like you just kind of I grew up with assumptions about what is okay to share, what is not okay to share, what emotions
Yeah.
are okay to show, what emotions are not okay to show, and like who you can really trust with that information. And yeah, I mean, I'll get into it later, but part of my college journey was understanding that it's okay to admit that there's something that needs addressed, and
Yeah.
that's a scary place to be, but like you just have to admit it, and you can just go from there.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, 100,000% I agree. Yeah. And I think, and maybe we'll like dive into this like later on, but yeah, like feeling like the expectation, like everything's always okay and like always great, and like and, like walking around campus, like saying hi to people. Maybe there's something we dive into later on, but yeah, I, you know, even like as someone who like is typically like pretty extroverted, like I find myself always wanting to like say hi to people, like say, hey, how are you? But then sometimes, knowing like a lot of people can like put a lot on you and put a lot of pressure, like, oh, if I don't say hi to them warmly, if I like don't, I don't give them my best, then I must be like a failure. And like that's something I do believe that like has like clicked with me a lot. Even like now into today, like it can feel like hard, like sometimes to show up for the people that we like want to show up for, even like having those like more in-depth conversations, even like on the fly, like when you're like heading to class, like just saying hi to them, but, like wanting to give more to them, but like not giving enough to them can like sometimes feel overwhelming. I don't know if you guys like relate to that,
No,
like
I
depth of conversation.
100%.
Yeah.
100% because I, like for me personally, I always feel like I need to kind of put my best face forward. And if I'm like kind of having like an off day, I'll just kind of like not be as open to a conversation. And like my friends know this, so like they'll ask what's wrong. And then I don't know, like for me, like I appreciate it, but I also like sometimes I'm not like ready to say it like in the moment. And I think like for me, I struggle with accepting that I don't have to always be giving like a sense of like kind of like what you said that like always being on. And I just like have trouble like accepting that I just have my off days. Like my guys closed for business for today.
Yeah. Sorry, Joy, go ahead.
Sure, sure. And just to add to that, I know my favorite kind of phrase I use whenever I interact with people is like, "Oh, I'm surviving," or it's like another day in the office, or
Yeah.
when people ask how I'm doing, and really that's just my way of kind of like saying, I don't know how to communicate to you that I'm not okay right now.
Mm.
Because I am
Yeah.
so afraid to say, actually, the world's feeling pretty overwhelming right now, and I've got zero clue what's going on. But I know the answer you want to hear is, "Oh, everything's great," or "Oh, everything's fine." And that's just so difficult because we've kind of created this culture where it's not okay to be not okay.
Yeah. Boys say, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm about to expose myself real quick. I'm definitely an introverted person by nature.
Yeah.
And my kind of like coping mechanism when I'm stressed is just to be avoidant and just to like become
Yeah.
extremely internal. And when I'm feeling overwhelmed by the world or school or whatever, I like turn that mask on and I'm just like, I'm good. I'm fine. It's okay. In my brain, what I'm doing is I'm telling myself connecting with this person in front of me is not worth my resources right now.
Mhm.
And that like it's a horrible thing to say, but like that's what happens when I'm stressed as a stressed introvert. It's just like I can't give something to you. And I still struggle with like how to overcome that or at least communicate to that person for their own like sanity. Hey, like I just can't meet you here right now, like emotionally.
Right. Yeah. I'm definitely an introvert as well. And the thing about me is like I tend to like isolate and not say anything. So well it kind of changed like in college where like I'm still introverted, but also at the same time I have people that like check in on me and they kind of like force me to like kind of be around people. And I actually notice that that's actually like beneficial for me because usually like for me, I'm a huge like overthinker and I could like go into like patterns of rumination when I'm by myself and I don't have like people just like around me and as a psychologist I've kind of like looked into this of how like social connection kind of influences your ability to kind of be like resilient around stress. It's very interesting actually, but yeah, I've kind of just like people like it's hard because like, my friends don't, like, allow me to isolate. They'll just be like, "Yeah, you're gonna go outside today. You're not."
Yeah, on the topic of rumination, guilty is charged. That is something I probably struggle with on a daily basis. And it's not just like, well, these people hate me and this person's hate me. It's like, am I doing enough? Like,
Yeah.
no, like my entire self-worth is going down the toilet if I don't get an A on this project, or oh no, if
Mhm.
I don't perform this way on the track or in this race, like my world will fall apart. And then it's just a spiral of just anxiety, just like if this doesn't go well, then that won't go well, and then I'm off track in this way. And that's just something that is extremely challenging to deal with, really on a daily basis.
Yeah. I think yeah, I relate to that because I took an exam today and I yeah, I told the professor I don't wanna see the score right now.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I When I was in high school, I did fine in school. Like I got really good grades, but like there was some kind of anxiety about checking and looking at the
Yeah.
grade book and knowing exactly what's going on. That gave me so much anxiety. I was like, I just don't want to look. Like I'm sure I did fine. I don't want to look.
Yeah.
I dread that every week looking in there.
Yeah, I think something that's telling is when I look at the grade book and I see, comments and like critiques, I'm not taking this as like, well, this is constructive feedback. This is helping me improve. I take it personally because for too long I've been putting my personal identity in my performance. So whenever I'm getting this feedback, it's like these things are hitting me hard because I've made them more important than they actually are.
Exactly. Like, you couldn't have said it better for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that the biggest struggle with men is that we, like you said, we put our identity and worth into our performance. So when it comes to even like there's no time to even think of having a vulnerable conversation or being honest about how we're doing because we're so busy um, trying to perform like for different things, whether it be like academically or just to the people around us, that we don't have time to sit down and be like, "Hey, I'm like kind of stressed for today. I need support," because you want to be seen as like kind of like achieved and on top of your game. So
Absolutely. I think for
Yeah.
myself. Oh, you want to go ahead and chip?
I was just gonna say, yeah, I think for better or for worse, like there's just this conception that we need to be self-sufficient. And when
yeah,
you ask for help and when you admit to someone that you're not doing well, you need support, that like you need like a little ego death to be like, it's
yeah,
okay to like ask for this. You need that permission almost.
yeah,
I think for myself, going into a little bit of my personal experiences here and on the topic of vulnerability, I've noticed that in every way where I try and like create this identity in myself is in some way connected to an inadequacy that I saw in the past. So, for instance, when I was a younger kid, I had every kind of thing going on under the sun. And it was like I was stressed out. I was like experiencing feelings that I didn't understand at the time. And at school, I was just this outcast kid because,
hmm
it's this weird kid that doesn't quite have his act together. What do you expect an 8-year-old to do with that? They're just
hmm
gonna be like, this kid is weird. So there was a social isolation aspect to it.
hmm
But then I wasn't the most fit kid either. I was dealing with asthma, childhood asthma. So I wasn't that athletic either. So not
hmm
only was I this social outcast, I wasn't really that athletic.
hmm
And I was dealing with like dyslexia and learning challenges. So I wasn't the smartest one either. So I had
hmm
this terrible trifecta of all these things kind of working against me to where I was just kind of confused and lost at the time. And what I noticed is as I got older, I thought that, well, I'm not accepted socially, so I'm not worth anything to these people because of these inadequacies.
right,
So as I got older and I grew out of some of those struggles, I was like, no, I'm gonna just work my butt off in each of these areas to try and, make myself adequate. And that resulted
yeah,
in me like pursuing endurance athletics. I began like studying like crazy in college. Then socially, I tried to do everything I could to try and build a social circle. But what I'm noticing now is it really didn't achieve anything.
yeah, yeah. I have so much to say about that before anyone else.
No, I think the stage is yours.
Oh, okay. It's like, yeah, when I was growing up, I would say that in middle school I was definitely socially outcasted, mainly because of my personality and interests. Especially like because I wasn't into sports, so I kind of was outcasted in that sense. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not good at sports, but I'm very like I can be smart. So let me use this to my advantage. And then over time, that got to the point where like I just focused so much on academics becoming my worth and value that I couldn't like separate myself from academic achievement. And I couldn't like relax and I just could just like, make a mistake.
Hmm.
Yeah, I relate so much to that. Like, so for me, like that kind of achievement was more social. Like, okay, and I relate so much to like in middle school feeling like an outcast. I feel like an outcast, ever since like really young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Middle school, I feel like I was a very like, oh, I'd like follow the rules a lot and like not really like stir much. That's only so much of them. Sorry. Hold on. That was only somewhat true though. Like sometimes I would like, fall the crowd join the crowd. Like sometimes, I'd be like, sometimes wouldn't be the best person. That's another story of like, of middle school, like misfits, like okay, but what I'm trying to get at. High school, definitely felt the same way. Also, I went to a really small high school, so it was like this graduating class of 26. within that 26, definitely like felt like an outcast. Like I would just kind of like do school, go home, and then like, or like sometimes do my buds and then go home. Right. So I relate to that a lot. It's so interesting how like coming from that like small environment of like 26 people to now being at a school of like about 2,600 people in my class, like that, it changed me a bit because it was kind of a culture shock. And like,
Mhm.
so for me, yeah, I like freshman year, I didn't like join like a ton of clubs. Like I joined my gospel choir. That's still part of me today. Um, but I realized that, freshman year, I felt like it was a little more natural. And I was like, oh, like, I'm just gonna like casually like meet people and like, not get like to be wrapped up in it, but just like kind of have like conversations. And like, that's how I'm gonna meet people, like go sit down, dine calls with like meet someone new, right? Like, that was kind of the way that I formed connection. Then, though, I really started to become very achievement based. And something that I found was like freshman spring, like I felt like there were people around me telling me, oh, you're not involved in enough, like do more. So I
Mhm.
tried to do more. And the problem I found was I got really burnt out by trying to do more. I
Mm.
was still academically like pretty strong. Like I feel like that was like more natural. Then when it came to like the social scene, the club, it just felt like was doing a little bit, like a little bit too much. It's more a complicated story, but I started like going up and like just like joining kind of random things and joining random mailing lists. And then
Mhm.
just from there, like, oh, this is a bit overwhelming. Like then junior year, if I fast forward to junior year, then I realized like I'm like, oh, let me like join a lot more. But it felt very achievement based and not community based, but it's something I regret. I
Mm.
tried to make my involvements about, oh, let me just like do a bunch of things, and, like, maybe contribute in some ways. But I realized that that desire to just want to like be in a bunch of things, or like being in them just to be in them and not really to like appreciate and like really soak in the community aspect. It was very like burned out. Like definitely burnt me out. And like that's kind of a burnout that I'm like kind of still experiencing and like trying to recover from. Because then I
Mhm.
also feel like I like in terms of the balance of like academics and activities, maybe more a little bit more towards the activities end.
Mhm.
And then kind of like, you know, was able to like survive academically to kind of like do what I could to like, get fine grades, right? So but realized that I have been placing a lot of my self-worth in like how much I do,
Mhm.
and I think unfortunately that burnout has carried me until today. But then that burnout has actually led me to not having the same capacity to do as I like once did.
Mhm.
And so like if I'm just being honest, like about like kind of where I've been in that, like we're still kind of struggling a little bit. Still kind of like struggling to refresh and even like during the
Get back your
semester.
energy.
Yeah, get back my energy. And, like, it's so interesting. It's like it'll manifest itself in the way that I, like, talk to other people sometimes. Like, sometimes, like, I will kinda like yeah, you were, like, saying, Jen, it's like you'll have those days of, like, "Yeah, no, off, like, I can't, can't do it." I will feel like, "Oh, man, I should be on all the time, all the time, all the time."
Yeah.
And I'll feel bad. So there's this thing at, like, BC called the BC look away. It's like when you cross someone and, like, don't say hi and then, like, look the other way, pretend that you don't know them. My instinct, though, is in my heart, I'm like, "Oh, I just, like, wanna, like, say hi to them." But then when I do that, it's like I mean well and just wanna say hi to them, but then my social battery will, like, deteriorate.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you guys relate at all to, wanting to say hi to a bunch of people. I maybe also am, like, an undercover introvert trying to be an extrovert. That's very possible. I'd be like, I'm more like ambiverted. I feel like I have some introverted qualities. I like solo time and like extroverted as well, like in different ways, like wanting to be personable. But it's so weird how like the burnout can just, it's like it's weird. Take almost like not suppress the desire, but like make it so much harder to engage, even like fill your own cup back up. I don't know if y'all can
Absolutely.
relate at all.
That makes so much sense, and, like, you hit, like, a lot of points. I feel like sometimes when we're, like, socializing or, like, we're approaching, like, our relationships and community, we kind of, like, go off of, like, I'm going to, like, either talk to as many people as possible or we're like kind of like showing up. Like people, there's like always like this weird advice when people are telling you like how to make friends, or it's like, well, just like talk to people. But I feel like to a certain degree, a lot of us that are like introverted, it's not that we need to talk to more people. It's just that because that talking just drains our energy, and we're not having energy for like the people that we already have. So much so that, like you said, we get burnt out. And approaching, whether it is like being a part of like an organization or just academics, when we are like achievement oriented, we're gonna eventually burn ourselves out because we're draining our energy by trying to. I feel like a lot of us are trying to be something that we aren't. We kind of like adopted this like identity based off of what other people kind of told us like how we should be. Like you should be more talkative, you should be more this, but that's not really us. So that's kind of like where like the burnout comes from. I feel like.
Yeah.
I sorry.
Oh, no, you're good, Chad.
I was gonna say to that exact point, have a feeling this happens with parents a lot. When you're told, "Oh, you should be more social, you should be more involved, you should be more active." I have this like hunch that that's coming from a place of insecurity about that person's own childhood, and they're trying
Yeah.
to correct it in you, and it's kind of unaware, if that makes sense. Like it's they don't realize they're doing that, but I think
Yeah.
that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, and in the same token there, in my case, I have a lot of brothers and sisters, right? And I've got an older brother and older sister, and they are like the picture perfect older sibling duo. I mean, honor roll every semester. They were just like never got in trouble, no kind of issues. Like they played sports all through high school. Like they were like the cookie cutter perfect older siblings, right? And so often I was compared to this model of like they get A's every semester. Why aren't you getting A's every semester? And they're doing all these extracurricular activities. Like, why aren't you doing those too? And like in addition to that, my parents would like reward them. Like obviously it's good to reward success, right? It's good to identify success. But so often it felt at the expense of like everyone else. It was like they're having a special day today because they got all A's this semester. And like I never got to experience that, which honestly was pretty disappointing. But I think the reward model in my childhood was so skewed from the start that whenever I got out on my nose like this is the only thing that matters, that I demonstrate achievement academically, or that I demonstrate that I can have friends, or like I need to demonstrate that I can do extracurricular things and still be successful.
I was just gonna say about like the reward thing is you're kind of being like reinforced like through like if your parents praise you for something, which is not like I'm not saying that's like bad, but if they're only kind of like giving you kind of credit only when you are like achieving something, that kind of makes you feel, well, my worth is only whenever I'm like on top of my game.
Hmm.
And it's like
Mhm.
hard to like get out of that mindset of, wait, I'm not actually on top of my game, but do people still like care about me? It's kind of like that mindset.
Right. And that's what broke me so much as a kid because I was not successful at all. And I was dealing with all kinds of different emotions and like I'm not sure what's the normal experience for a kid, but they were trying to put me on medication, taking me off medication, and it was just wrecking me. So like I was having moments of like I'm super angry right now. What do I do with this? I have no idea how to regulate emotions. And then my parents are like, "Why are you acting out when your perfect older brother, or older sister have got their act together?" And I don't blame them per se for anything that happened, but they kind of left me to fend for myself emotionally, which for better or for worse made me who I am today.
That makes a lot of
Mm.
sense. Like you mentioned the comparison between like you and your brothers and sisters, that like that can cause a lot of like comparison. Whenever you are an adult, you're like comparing yourself to people that you feel that are like more stable, quote unquote, than you, but they're not actually stable. They're just that what stability for them is different like than what like achievement or stability is for you. So you're comparing yourself to something that you could never achieve. And I struggle with comparison a lot. So
And this is kind of where the biggest issue I deal with on a daily basis kind of stems from because people will come up to me and they'll look at like my resume, so to speak, and they'll be like, "Man, you got an award in cross country," and "Oh man, this is like your eighth 4.0 semester in a row," or "Oh man, like you're in this really like cool program in the military," and "Oh man, you got accepted to this school and that school." But on the inside, I'm like, I'm dying on the inside, and nobody sees that, and that's the
Yeah.
thing. And that's why, like, it's so hard to be vulnerable. Because what am I supposed to tell them? Like, no, you know what? In spite of all those achievements, in spite of all those things going right, on the inside, I'm not quite right.
Yeah. Like, things are not actually okay right now.
Like you see this great picture over there. It's not all that great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that, Jordan. This, the comparison game with siblings and things like that. I have 3 other siblings and you know, my older brother, he was the first. And I think what people forget a lot, I think parents forget this too, is that the relationship between parents and their kids changes as more kids come into the picture. And because that means there's a new economic situation, there's just a new like family dynamic. And so that changes. And then you still have the same model applied to like all the other kids. And it doesn't work that way. And so I was the third kid and I'm just constantly being compared to the first kid. And I felt like there was this standard. And I was like, well, okay, he did this with his money, he did this with his job, he did this with his career. Like, I guess I just ought to do that because like I said, that just seems more stable.
Yeah.
And, coming out of high school and entering into college, my model for stability was him. And so for like, about 2 years, I'm in a major that is not making me happy. I'm just doing it because he did it. And I'm studying and I'm trying to think and train my brain to be like him. And then I hit rock bottom and I'm like, I'm living a fake life. Like this is not me at all. Like this is someone else. And it was somebody else. And I had to admit that at some points. And it took 2 years to do it.
That makes a lot of sense. Like,
Yeah,
that
well,
makes a lot of sense. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say the whole trip, like that's better than me because like I I feel like I took the other kind of extreme of like so I started off as biology, switched to biochemistry my sophomore year, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like this is not bad. Like I actually enjoy this. I like if I feel like chemistry why my bio major. I know crazy to say. Um but then junior spring, I like, I kind of hit this wall. I'm like, you know what? I don't know if biochem's doing it for me. So I like thought about switching. Like I was thinking like philosophy, I was thinking theology, I was thinking doing music, a big musician, but I psychology as well. Then let some of like because also well, and you pre-med as well. So like, you know, you can do any major pre-med, but got some advice from like some doctors who had like done it like decades ago, and they're like, "Nah, just stick with biochemistry." So I ended up sticking with biochemistry. Then I realized, you know what? It's maybe not the best personal fit for me, and so that's good that you realize that, Chip. But at the same time, it's like maybe that's a part of the reason also for my burnout. But at the end of the day, I think it's really important, like, especially at like Boston College and like I'm sure other institutions they tell you like your major doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't dictate your future. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't determine your life, right? Like so anyways, I wanted to just like throw that anecdote in there. Like, it's so important to like not, always like just follow the voice of people around you. Even if they're older and like they think they have your best interests at heart, even if they do, like you better. So like I would just toss that out there.
Yeah. And I kind of relate to that as well, just because, in high school, I think my freshman year English class, I got out of there with like a low C or something. It was terrible, maybe even lower than that, but I barely passed that class. And I was not considered a skilled writer in any regard throughout high school. But throughout my time studying criminology and analysis of criminal behaviors, I kind of fell in love with the law. I developed this ambition. I was like, hey, I kind of want to try law school. I think the biggest difference between the high school me and me now is the fact that I had people surrounding me that said, "Oh no, that could be a good option for you," instead of this conceptualization of like, "Oh no, you're not measuring up to this person or that person, or you haven't demonstrated that you can do this before, so that's not really meant for you."
Yeah. I My family told me, like, when I told them that I wanted to be a therapist, they were like, "Well, like, you're gonna have to work with a lot of, like, crazy people and everything," and they just, like, I love my family, but, like, it's, like, Bruh, like, I feel that you have to, like, on some level, be kind of connected to what you want, and that involves finding it down the line or discovering it. The way that I, like, approach kind of a career is just discover it as you go. You know, some people have, like, a solid idea of what they wanna do with their life, like, when they're, in high school, and that's amazing, but I think for the most of us, we just kind of discover it, or we kind of people told us what to do, but like we realize that that's not us, so we kind of like peel off the layers, and then we kind of have this like solid like core of who we are, and then we just go for that. And I think that's what really brings true fulfillment is even deciding that, like making a decision like 2 years into college. That's like that's that involves a lot of vulnerability because you don't know how other people will react. You don't know, like, what the road looks like, so that also involves a lot of seeking out, like, what you want. It requires being vulnerable, being honest to yourself and to other people.
100%.
So in criminology, there's this concept that we refer to as labeling theory. And it might be something that y'all are familiar with, but essentially what labeling theory is this idea that when we assign a title or a definition to something or someone, they're more likely to become like this definition in a way. And
Right.
for myself, so frequently I found myself getting defined so negatively. I mean, both by myself, like through my own internal monologue, and from others as well, just from outside influence. Like the people I thought were my friends when growing up really were tearing me down very, very frequently. And,
Mhm.
my parents, I love them dearly. They were tearing me down the same way, telling me what I could and could not be. They were questioning why I was this quote unquote disruptive child, this dysregulated child.
So
And whenever those labels came around, they did some real damage. For the longest time, I did not think I could be certain things because of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
To add to that, part of my adult journey is actually being okay with um, not having labels, if that makes sense. Because what I've discovered is that, you know, there are a lot of things I like, there are a lot of things I enjoy doing. There are a lot of different things I'm interested in, right? I'm a creative guy, deeply involved in projects that are like art and design, but also engineering. And then I have this like, like Bible side of me that I'm just like studying all the time. I'm going to these different like conferences and stuff like that. And so to me, it all makes sense and I see all these connections, but to other people, they don't make those connections. So they're like, wait, I thought you were this thing. I thought
no,
I
I
thought you
relate to
were
this
more
so
like an
much.
engineer. And they're like, "Oh, no, I thought you were more like an artist. Wait, aren't you a theologian?" And I'm like, "You
I
don't
relate to
have to
this so
make."
much.
It's like you don't have to like give a label, and like it shocks people. I'm like, It's fine. Like you don't need to make those connections. Like it's just I am what I am. It's okay."
Yeah, and to Chip's point regarding the theologian part, I've found so much fulfillment and so much vindication in finding my identity in something that's far greater than myself. And the reason I feel so comforted by that is because the more I try and define myself with my achievements, with my relationships, with my social circle, with my academic prowess, I find that I will inevitably fall short in all categories.
Yeah.
So I find a lot of comfort in finding my identity in something that's not going to change, something more significant than myself, and something I can actually trust in because I sure can't trust in myself.
Yeah. I think like people get confused when they like see you having different roles or what have you. I like it's kind of like listen, it's kind of like Hannah Montana. It's a weird analogy,
It's the switch.
but it is kind of like a switch because like even like for me like doing the podcast, people like are like wait what are you like? It's just they can't connect these different parts of myself and just see me as just me, and it can be difficult because people aren't always gonna understand, and that's okay, but it's more of I need to be comfortable, like, integrating different parts of myself, not being, like, confined to, like, limiting myself to labels, like Jordan said, being defined I'm letting God define me instead of like different labels. And it like at times it's difficult to do when people are like, well, you're this. So it's, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and thinking back, it's either the Roman or the Greek. I think it's the Roman. But in the Roman theater culture in ancient times, these performers, they had these different masks, and
Hmm.
the masks wore an emotion that fit the scene. I feel like so often we're like those actors where we're just switching the mask that best fits the
Yeah.
context we're in, where it's a reflection of what everybody wants to see in us versus actually being genuine. I think people are genuinely scared of people that open up a little bit because, you know,
Mhm.
my life is messy.
My life
My
is
life,
messy.
my life is not perfect. It doesn't come in a Hallmark card. It doesn't always come with a smile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Justin said a line that really resonated with me at Jubilee. He said something to the effect of the stories that we're surrounded by, we end up becoming.
Hmm.
And so it's like the reality is, as Jordan was kind of getting at, is the people around us, whether it's our family or friends, they have this version of you in their mind, and that version is fulfilling a role. He's like the funny guy, or oh, he's the athletic guy, or oh, he does this, oh, he does that, and they're telling this story, and you either accept it and start to become that story, or you can put yourself in a more important narrative, a deeper narrative, right? If you saturate yourself with the gospel or what God is saying about you, you start to become something more genuine, something more real versus the stories that your family or your friends are telling about you. Not that they're doing that intentionally. I don't think everyone's being malicious,
Yeah.
but like the reality is there's like a version of you in everyone's head, and that isn't always the genuine version of you.
Yeah, a lot of times it gets like we kind of sometimes can reinforce it when we're like kind of going into this role of whatever they're like putting on us. Whether it's like the funny guy, in like certain groups, you're kind of like putting on that role and you're like reinforcing that because you feel that okay, people are only comfortable when I'm funny, but if I start to share like that my life is messy, it's like that fear of, well, what are they gonna like say because they don't have that expectation of me. And I think like everybody kind of secretly is doing the same thing. They're like secretly saying, yeah, my life was messy, but at the same time, I'm just gonna play this role. It's not like conscious.
Everything's great, guys.
It's not conscious, but it's just kind of I don't know. It feels easy at times.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's easier to say everything's okay than to be genuine sometimes.
It's also very sorry.
I think one thing that I've kind of found comfort in is one particular verse I try and remind myself of it, Psalms 139:14. I praise you for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. The reason I try to remind myself of that is because not only do I have, people like friends and whatnot telling me that, oh, you're not enough in this way. Or I have mentors too telling me I'm not enough in this way. And I've got family members, the people that are supposed to love it and support me the most, telling me I don't measure up in this way. So having some objective truth to say, no, you are fearfully and wonderfully made is so impactful because it's something I can fall back on to remind myself that even though I may have been labeled in these ways, that doesn't define who I am and who I was made to be.
Exactly.
100%.
And that breaks you out of, because I feel like a lot of us are like trapped with the influence of what other people are saying about us, so much so that we feel like okay, like they're saying this, and like to even step out of that role is super scary. But once you listen to what God is saying to you and what He's affirming in your identity, then you feel more secure to be vulnerable because you have this mindset. Well, I'm already loved as I am. I don't need to perform to be loved. A lot of men are trying to perform to get accepted and be loved.
I mean, one of those kind of examples is like obviously we look at like dating and relationship culture, right? And from a guy's perspective, there is so much that goes into it, like our identity as like being adequate if we can find somebody to date, our looks, if we're not attractive enough, like that takes
Mhm.
away from who we are as a person. If you've been single for a long time, it's viewed as worth an inadequacy. Like the way we structure society, it's these different categories that we've built our worth on. I almost divide them up into the relational aspect, the vocational aspect and the emotional aspect. Just like
Exactly.
emotionally, we're always okay. Vocationally, we're going to make that 6, 7 figures. And relationally, we got tons of friends and we're in a great dating relationship, or like I got a great girlfriend, or eventually you're married, and it's just like the best thing ever. And so often we find our identities in a combination of like these three different things.
My struggle is that personally I am very like I don't want to sound like egotistical, but I'm very, very different in a
Hmm.
lot of ways. Currently I don't want a romantic relationship. I love being single, and
Hmm.
like for me and like what I've just been around is just kind of unheard of. People are like, "You're happy," so it's just like really, it's just like you're happy. Like, how are you happy? But I kind of like feel insecure about it because well, I'm not allowed to be like happy as I am. I'm
Hmm.
not allowed to
It's
be
almost like,
content.
am I broken?
Yeah, it's like,
Right.
am I?
Right.
There's just something like flawed with me with like how I'm living my life,
Mhm.
but that's because like I'm comparing my life to like the standard of other people.
Yeah. Yeah. It's jarring to me that a lot of Christians forget that singleness is a valid biblical category,
Yeah,
and, like, that's a
Yep.
valid way to live life. But it's like, I was single for a period of about 6 years, and then eventually I met my current girlfriend, and during that time, like, I was interested in the relationship, but I wasn't, like, putting myself out there, I wasn't, like, driving forward because there was just something about that transitionary period between schools and education. I just knew it was most beneficial to just remain as I am,
right.
and you get that pushback from other people. They're like, well, why not? Well, what's wrong? Like, what's really going on? Like, what's holding you
Yeah.
back? And I'm like, nothing's holding me back. I just don't want to do that right now. And they're just like shocked because they're like, oh, you're not living like me? That's weird.
Yeah, and it creates that kind of like people don't know how to like view you because you're happy being like the way you are, and they I guess for so long people have this like as humans we want to have like this narrow mindset of like how we live life, and then like when someone kind of it's like outside of that norm, then they're like, well, what?
Yeah. You don't
What's
fit in a
sketch?
box. Yeah.
Yeah, and when it comes, this is why it's like so hard to be vulnerable because they're like, there's a way of living that's, like, kind of the standard. Once you, like, step outside of that, like, a little bit, you have to, like, be, like, so focused on 'cause we none of us wanna be, like, rejected for being honest, but, like, people can sometimes be, like, a little bit I don't know what the word is, like, they don't sometimes they can be, like, ignorant of, like, certain things, and they could kind
Yeah.
of, like, not be, like, as sensitive to, like, what you're going through, so or they
It's
have
like
the
that moment. Like,
yeah.
what? I've dealt with depression for like my entire life. Or like,
Eh, that's actually really like it's sad, but like I understand what you're saying. It's
yeah,
great.
or like,
Yeah.
like when I was younger, I had a moment where like I had a pretty serious like suicidal ideation. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
no one knows how to respond to that. So it's just this kind of like uncomfortable, confused, slightly concerned. Like, do you still feel that way? Or like, have you sought help? And like, no one really knows how to handle it. So it's just kind of like, don't talk about it and don't weird the people out.
Yeah, I still think, like, even, like, I'm from, like, a mental health standpoint, I still think there's, like, a lot of issues when it comes to even dealing with like, if you struggle with, like, having, like, a suicidal like, episode, and people could like, they go immediately to, like, emergency, like, "Oh my gosh," but that's not, like, what people really need when they're being vulnerable because that kinda, like, makes it worse. You know, you feel more, like,
Hmm.
anxious whenever you're opening up because 'cause you're so afraid of that, like, reaction of, "My goodness, this person," like
Yeah, it's like, I love living life today, but I didn't back then.
yeah.
Yeah, and then like people like they'll look at you a little bit differently. Oh, he's been on the edge before. He's not 100% like stable.
Yeah, like they might be like even afraid of like approaching certain topics because of how vulnerable you are. And really the problem isn't like you being vulnerable. Problem is just that maybe like we as a society or on some level we're uncomfortable approaching these issues. So that like
Hmm.
whenever someone is brave enough to even say anything, it's kind of like, no, that's the elephant in the room.
Hmm. And I
Yeah.
also I also think like our culture has kind of made light of the issue as well
Yeah.
because it's become trendy to say like, "Oh, I have anxiety," or "I
Yeah.
feel depressed." Like, so with some people that is truly a genuine thing to say, and other times it is not at all genuine. It's just like a feeling of nervousness and a feeling of uncertainty isn't necessarily fit the clinical definition of anxiety. Like I know
Right.
for myself, I had a season of like 3 months where I couldn't eat food like
Yeah.
normally. Like, I would get sick at a minimum once or twice a week for 3
Mhm.
Mm.
months. Like, that is not normal,
Yeah, that's yeah.
and when people, like, diminish what those things are, it's becomes even more difficult to be vulnerable because now it just looks like you're hopping on the trend.
Yeah, yeah, because, like, even when someone says, like, "Okay, I have anxiety," so some person, like, they might say, like, "Oh, I have anxiety, but that means, like, "Oh, I also need to take medication." And then someone might say, like, "Oh, I have anxiety," but, like, it's only, like, about, like, an exam or just, like, a situation. So I think, like, those things kind of, like, now that we've been using it so much, like, even, like, the language of things kind of has changed.
Yeah, language is huge. And words matter too. When I was in middle school, I was like I was just hearing that word a lot. Anxiety, anxiety. Oh, I have anxiety. Oh, I'm anxious. And like I began to hear it so much, I just hated it. I was like, I don't want to even know what you're experiencing. I'm just so
Yeah.
tired of this word being used. Suddenly I'm disinterested. And
Yeah.
so, I feel like that happens a lot, especially with OCD and
Mhm.
ADHD. It's just like a buzzword. People are like, oh, I just have this. Or, oh, I have just that. And yeah, I would agree. Like, I feel like the meaning of these words and the weight of these words is just like suddenly reduced because it's just like it's talked about so much in very like lighthearted situations. And to
Mhm.
many
Yeah.
people, it's not lighthearted.
Yeah, and like, for me, because, like, I actually have, like, things like OCD, and when people say, like, "Oh, I have OCD," it's like, no, because people don't understand, like, they might say they have that, but they don't understand, like, what is actually, like, involved in, like, actual OCD versus, like, just being neat or being very, like, type A or whatever.
Particular.
Particular.
Yeah. It's such a challenge too because in one sense, you don't wanna discount anybody that makes that claim,
Mhm.
but in the
Right.
the other sense, when you use it so flippantly, words have meaning, and unfortunately, they can sometimes lose their meaning. But even, like, in ways like guys joke around, like the jokes around, like, suicide, like, "Oh, yeah, go kill yourself," or where
Yeah.
we flippantly use, like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill myself," or, like, "I'm gonna jump off a bridge because
I've
like, I've got a test coming up."
Yeah.
That too makes it even harder to be vulnerable about suicide. Because like, yeah, you're joking about those feelings now, but I felt that way once.
Mhm. It's weird because I have a professor, she's like, "Well, I'm concerned with, like, Gen Z because, like, y'all wanna kill yourselves a lot." So, and it's like and it really got me to thinking is, like, this is becomes, like, such, like, a common language to even say, like, the phrase, like, I I wanna kill myself. It's just but it's not actually, like, people, like, use that as, like, an expression of stress versus, like,
Mhm.
going through a
Mhm.
a period of depression or suicide.
And I think for anyone who's experienced those feelings, like, it stings a little bit
Yeah,
when people use that word in that phrase in those terms in those ways.
exactly.
Yeah. I wonder, guys, I think we've covered a lot of some pitfalls of being vulnerable or like some of the challenges to be vulnerable with other people about mental health.
Mhm.
Are there stories or examples in your guys' lives where being vulnerable has been really fruitful and really successful and has really helped you out?
What was that day? Sunday? On Sunday?
Oh my goodness,
Wait, I
yeah.
actually was not even thinking about Sunday, but
You
that's a great
what?
example.
We're here because of it.
This is true. This is true. We would talk more about Sunday, but yeah, I'm curious, just like if you guys have anything about that.
I'll hold up my thought real quick.
Hmm.
I mean, I can think of one thing. When one of my classmates passed away from suicide, I like told, multiple people about it and like kind of opened up a lot. And then finally someone encouraged me, like go to university counseling, so it's okay to get counseling. So I finally like got counseling, so yeah, then it was like November. And I like finally decided, okay, I'm gonna actually do something about this. I'm gonna actually go to therapy. And so that was an important like first step towards kind of like the recovery of my personal mental health, like my mental and emotional health. And like that was just like the first step, and it was a really important one. And I'd say, I'm not like kind of out of the woods. I'm like kind of in this place of like, maybe not like at my best, but feeling more comfortable seeking help
Mhm.
and feeling more comfortable like kind of making these appointments to like, just checking on my wellness, right? I think and in the way that I've been talking to other people, it's made me more vulnerable in telling them how I'm genuinely doing. And I feel like I'm doing a slightly better job at that. I feel like though sometimes it can go like the other extreme of like, I'm not saying it's not a bad thing though. Like I think, you know, sometimes you just struggle a lot with, like, oh, things are really bad, but like it can feel sometimes it can feel tempting to sometimes want to stay in that place and feeling like, oh, I'm not doing well, or like telling other
Mhm.
people about it. Because I think sometimes, it is a good conversation starter, I think, when we tell people we're not well. So on one hand, it is like easier and I think a good thing to be able to like say that. I think also sometimes I can find myself like just like want to say, I'm not well, but like kind of in a way to like hopefully get the person to hopefully start a conversation with that person. It's
Mhm.
almost is interesting. I know like it at least like starts a conversation around like kind of my wellness and then to maybe then see like are they themselves doing well? Like me being vulnerable, like saying, "Hey, I'm not doing well," is that gonna get them to open up a little bit more? I'm trying to like I'm not phrasing this right, but
Feels like an invitation, right?
it is an invitation.
Yeah.
There can be like I will caution like there can be the extreme of like wanting to say like I'm not well to like stay in that place.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but
Yeah.
that is something that I have struggled with is like saying out like saying, "Oh, I'm not well," I'm like kind of wanting to like just like complain about my problems and like but like not actually want to do something about them. I mean that's maybe like something we can talk about, but that's I think there are kind of two sides to that coin of yeah, when we're talking about like when we're doing well. I don't know if any of you guys have any thoughts on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for myself, the way I've kind of experienced it, and this was like a breakthrough revelation for me, but it seems so obvious. People don't know what you don't tell them. And what I mean by that is if you just go on like living the facade, like I have in the past, and like I'm this type A go-getter that's got everything going for him in life, and all they see is the GPA, athletic achievements, and this social circle that I've built. They're like, oh man, this guy's awesome. Like everything's great in his life. So if you don't end up sharing with people like, hey, despite all of that, I struggle with this X, Y, and Z on a daily basis, they'll never know.
Mhm.
And like for me, that was like, oh, people aren't just gonna figure out what I'm dealing with if I don't tell them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of guys struggle with even, like, verbalizing or even saying anything because, like, on some level, we kinda hope that people will just, like, figure it out or just get it without us having to say anything, but it does require that we, like, on some level, be vulnerable. Then I'll talk about Jubilee.
Absolutely. Well, I think for any of the viewers, if I could just give one encouragement, it would be to find somebody that you can trust. And I don't recommend it to be someone you can't trust because I've had people I've shared things with and they broke my trust and that definitely does hurt. But find people that you can really trust. And I do encourage you to share those things with them because carrying the load alone is pretty hard. And it does get easier when you share it.
Mhm. It's really good. Yeah, if I could give like a closing piece of advice too, I think feeling validated when someone listens to you and is like really trying to understand you, best feeling in the world. It's
Yeah.
amazing. But like I think Joy was getting at, there can be too much validation where now you feel entitled to feel depressed or anxious.
Yeah.
And now you feel right for this.
Yeah.
And so it is crucial that you surround yourself with someone who A is going to listen to you and empathize with you, but B is going to challenge you and maybe even light a fire under your butt that like moves you forward, and they can actually walk with you and help you get out of whatever you're dealing with. I think that's very critical.
Yeah, I think yeah, that balance is important. Because I think that's when vulnerability, like, really grows us, is when we're, like, surrounding ourselves with people that are, aware of our struggles, but also they don't want us to, like, stay there. They want us to, like, push and challenge us to be, a better version of ourselves. I'm so excited to talk about this. So oh, the q your question, what Chip, your question was, like, when did you experience, like, vulnerability to be, like, helping? I think, yeah, it was Sunday that we all met. Yeah. So, I, usually, like, in that environment, like, my mindset goes to, like, this is, like, a Christian environment of, like, believers. We're all together, and, like, the first thing isn't vulnerability. It's, like, how do I, like, show my best self? So, it was just very, like, the whole situation was, like, very surprising and shocking to me that, just 4 random guys just, like, crying together after a session. That's, like, it's beautiful, but it's just, like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people don't experience that. When I came back from Jubilee and I told some people, they're like, "Huh?" Like, "What? What happened?" So, I think it's one of those moments where, like, it's definitely, like, changed my life because, like, it never like, I always, like, get uncomfortable. I'm comfortable crying around my female friends, not so much my guy friends. So to have, like, to be, like, held by other men in that moment of, I'm just falling apart, I think that's amazing. It's healing.
Like, I don't like crying in general. I'm just putting that one out there. Legitimately, like the amount of people I've cried in front of in that kind of context, I could probably count that on a single hand. In terms of moments. So, and there was something so impactful and healing about that. So I think the importance of that cannot be dismissed.
Yeah. I would say I I get choked up when I feel like God is just like close or just moving. That's just like how I respond. And that's always been true. I think what was special about that breakout session is that just given the nature of the talk, like it was about depression and mental health, given the nature of the talk, like pretty much everyone in that room was there because they needed something. Like there was a kind of pursuit, if you will, right? To really hear this person speak and to really find some kind of healing or some kind of reconciliation. And so I think the gravity of like us coming together is because like we've all had struggles and
Yeah.
we've found people who need support. We all need mutual support. And so when we found that, it's just when the emotions kind of ran. But I think it's a really good thing. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something
that moment healed a lot of things that the kid in me didn't get back then, if that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
me too. Because 'cause I'm not, like, I kinda, like, I talk a lot about, like, being vulnerable and stuff, but, like, that moment, like, made me realize that, like, yeah, this is healing for me because I never had this, and I don't really, like, it kind of brought, like, to surface, like, okay, I'm uncomfortable doing this, engaging in this. It was also, like, challenging me to, like, lean in because this could actually bring, like, a lot of freedom for me.
100%. I'm glad you leaned in. That's really good.
Yeah.
And now we're here.
Yeah,
Yeah, now we're here.
yeah. What a blessing it's been. Yeah, but if there's one message for all all the people who didn't get to experience what we did at Jubilee, it's to find somebody that you can build a relationship, or for strangers that you can trust, and have one of those moments where like you let somebody know like this is something I've dealt with or experienced, and share the load.
I think I'm gonna add that to my quote quote list, "Share the load."
Yeah, it reminds
Share
me
the
of
load.
yeah,
Sure.
Bill Withers. So one of my favorite songs is Bill Withers' "Lean on Me." So he says like, "I'll share your load if you just call me."
Yeah.
I absolutely love singing that song to people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's a great place to leave it.
Yeah, I think it's good, to wrap up. Again, I appreciate you guys being on, and, we'll definitely do this whenever we're available to talk. I'm sure we have, like, a whole lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, and I'd love to dive deeper into maybe something more specific. Like we talked a lot about the ways we can be vulnerable, but maybe even just like the practical ways, like what does it mean to talk about anxiety, or what does it mean to talk
Yeah.
about depression?
Yeah, like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.